Not exactly hidden. Glowing eyes crack open as the sound of buzzing interrupts the silence. Bryn Char withdraws his communicator from his jacket pocket and regards the unknown number. Caller ID says it's from the Central Police Station. Oh, this ought to be interesting. The fact that overarching police regulations and staff need to be assigned from one of the galactic academies for planets designated as tourist or resort worlds to be allowed to operate is something that always somewhat bothered him. Lilb Tulelb, resort or not, tourist hotspot or not, is still an Apuk colony. Certainly, only about half the population was Apuk, but best have an Apuk to handle the Apuk people. He puts the communicator on speaker and resumes his meditation, learning of this new forest and synchronizing with it. That Dare Char had so easily attuned to this new wood was fascinating, but allowing the new wood in completely was a little more challenging for him. It was so very different from the old. He supposed he had simply grown accustomed to gnarled root and swaying branch, so much so that spreading mycelium and dancing spores was simply odd to his senses. "You have found Bryn Char. Is this call about my businesses, my family, or some other thing of note?" he asks gently as he lets the bright forest in a little deeper. He had many assumptions about humans and the newer sorcerers shattered by this event. Shattered in a good way. "This is Police Chief Bruy of the Central Lilb Tulelb Precinct. Do you have time to speak?" "I do. However, if you could please answer my first question. I'm speaking to you to ask for restraint on your efforts and those of other older sorcerers in the upcoming attack on the Supple Satisfaction." "Why?" he asks in return. He's honestly baffled. In situations like this, where individuals use the mechanisms of the law to subvert the law must be taken out of the equation or further horror and madness will continue. "Sir, there is a reason why we have law and order. It's not something we just put down when it becomes inconvenient." "This is beyond inconvenient, madam. This is a complete perversion of its purpose and intentions," Bryn Char counters. "The law is meant to protect people from the cruel and callous, and if the cruel and callous utilize it as another tool of cruelty, then it must be set aside. There is no series of laws or regulations beyond manipulation or any kind of rule that can't be twisted to work against itself. We can't just kill out of hand. If someone is at your mercy, you have to give them a chance to redeem themselves," Chief Bruy states. "They will use such a chance for vengeance or to simply continue acting in the way that the monstrous do," Bryn Char asserts. "Will you really deny another the chance to become something better? Will you place the innocent and defenseless in the grasp of death for a chance?" His counter to her pleading is as brutal as it is swift. "And if you or someone you love suddenly turns into a monster, wouldn't you want a chance at forgiveness? No. If I become worse than the Orega girls, then I hope my death is as swift as it is brutal," Bryn Char says as his eyes open again. He's starting to grow annoyed by the conversation. "And if your son does?" she asks. "Better a corpse than a beast," he says as he fights down a flash of anger. "You're riding this down to the grave? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything," Bryn Char answers. "And what about extenuating circumstances? No matter how extenuating a circumstance, people who make the choice to act like a monster will be treated like a monster, and monsters are to be put down. There needs to be an element of mercy and compassion in the justice system. How else will anyone who falls down the wrong path ever find their way back if one mistake can damn them forever? Redemption at the point of a spear isn't redemption. It's coercion under threat of death or imprisonment, therefore pointless. Those who want to be better should be spared, yes, but this is not a scenario of such. This is a case where a large group of evil women are acting like a large group of evil women and continuing to act like it so long as there is no consequence. There is no question of conscience or redemption. The idea hasn't crossed any of their minds. We don't have a group of protesters on the inside doing the work for us. Death to all of them. The only thing that stopped myself and my fellows from commencing the slaughter already is that there are children unaccounted for. So, all sorcerers have an utterly black and white morality? Evil or not? To be killed or to be spared? You're really looking to provoke me, aren't you? Brinchar asks. But no, the morality of a sorcerer is even simpler than that. Simpler. We each have a line, a point where a person goes from a person to a monster. Go over that line and we start planning your destruction. These women have crossed that line. For all of us. Anything that doesn't cross the line can be negotiated, even forgiven. Anything past it cannot. Is this understandable? Brinchar asks before smirking. It's kept a lot of politics and warmongering among the Apuk quite honest on the home world. Otherwise, how could so quarrelsome a species ever truly unify? This isn't a good thing, Chief Brui returns. Is it not? Having a certain limit on bad behavior where no amount of wealth, bleeding-hearted fools, or soft-handed governments can protect you from the consequences of is a very good thing in my opinion. It could only be improved if such wretched behavior would simply cause people's heads to spontaneously explode. But as we don't have such a wonderful system in place, we simply have to make do with what we can, Brinchar states. Still, I sense this is not the fullness of what you want to talk about. How do you know that? If one interacts with people enough, even the most inattentive and disinterested pick up more and more cues as a matter of course. There's something else you want to talk about beyond the fact that sorcerers, like nature itself, are bloody in tooth and claw and suffer not fools or technicalities. It's about your son, Chief Brui says after a moment. More than the fact that I'm willing to do something about him should he become a monster, I hope. He knows how you handled the Orega girls. He's refusing to back out of this because he thinks your methods are too cruel and monstrous to inflict on them. Oh, that. You knew, she says. Yes, I want him to talk to me about it though. I'm not going to chase him down and interrogate him over such things. This is a hard lesson, one everyone needs to learn, how to endure. We all eventually learn something terrible. How you live with it is one of the most important measures of an adult. Being a parent isn't easy. You have to protect your child and your every instinct sings for you to do so. But if you overdo it, then you cause the kind of harm that leaves them too weak to survive. You're teaching him to endure? Chief Brui demands in a flat tone. Also courage. He will carry this problem until the idea of confronting me about it is less terrible than keeping it to himself. Perhaps that day might never come, but if it does, he will learn an important lesson in courage, that most tasks which require it require far less than you assume. Why? Because I won't always be there for him. Putting aside the possibility of my death, he will want his own life when the allure of living with and learning from his father wears away. When that time comes, he will leave. It will take courage, and being on his own will take endurance. He needs to learn these things. He must learn to both swallow one's distaste and work with what you do not like, and to look someone you know is wrong in the face and tell them that they are wrong. And if he learns to hate you, then perhaps his hate will give him the strength and endurance to thrive, Brinchar says. Why? Because I want him to have my strength without my scars, as every mother wants for her daughters and every father wants for his sons. Now, is there anything else than confirming that, sorcerer or not, I'm still a father and acting as such? Look, my main concern is that we don't end up traumatizing these children as we rescue them. Can you please show restraint in areas they might see? That? Easily done. So you're not going to go full bone chewer on them? Chief Brui asks. That's reserved for the Orega girls. I'm not breaking out that for these sickos. And why not? You seem to have a clearly established moral guideline that says you can and should. She challenges him. Because the Orega girls made it personal. These girls haven't. Not for me. Of course I won't be standing in the way of any of their victims deciding they want 5 minutes and a knife to work out their frustrations. That's monstrous. That's justice. Old and brutal, and the kind that makes the wicked and cruel stick to the shadows and operate conservatively, what the police are supposed to do. We uphold order, including corrupt and decedent orders. Tell me, will you be able to do anything at all if Lilb Tulelb's council suddenly passes legislation to make child trafficking legal? Brinchar asks. Yes. Such as? I have authority. I can refuse to obey such a thing. So in other words, you would break the law to uphold it? We are not alike. You crawled out of a nightmare some 1,000 years ago. I'm an officer of the law. First off, I'm only approaching my 700th year. Secondly, a badge means nothing without the will to use what it stands for. What are you asking me? That you think I don't have the courage to make the arrest needed? Chief Brewy is agitated now. Good. That tends to bring out the truth in people. Do you? We've already identified a lawmaker as one of the criminals. We've identified the rich, the powerful, the famous, and the well-liked. Are you willing to arrest someone that you once admired, or perhaps still do? Yes. Even the council on that world? I will. Even family? Brinchar presses. Yes, she answers, and he smiles. Then we truly are not so different. I'll try to take people alive, but if they use lethal force, I have the right to defend myself, and especially others, Brinchar says, and she lets out a sigh. Very well. Can you talk to the other sorcerers as well? The more people we have to subject to both legal proceedings and the court of public opinion, the better chance we have of getting what we need to stomp down on this kind of madness in the future. We don't just need this nightmare to end, we need it to be made an example of. My dear woman, you have begun to sing the song of sorcerers. Strike with the force to crater a mountain, and you need never raise your hand again, in theory anyways. The young always think consequences are something that happens to other people, Brinchar says. On that we both agree, Chief Brewy mutters. Thankfully, my son seems wise enough to see past that delusion. Or he did. I will speak with the other sorcerers. After that, I will speak with my son. If he's going to hurt himself for this, then I need to put a stop to it. Thank you for speaking with me. I have a fair amount to think about. As do I. Good luck, O Bone Chewer. Fare thee well, Police Chief. Brinchar finishes off and then sighs after closing the call. He really needs to be closer to Darechar. He needs to be able to trust his son more and be trusted more in turn. But he hadn't been there for the boy growing up. It was no one's fault. His mother was correct to give him a stable environment without a lot of movement in his earlier years, and introducing Brinchar that early could have done any number of awful things to the growth of a young boy caught between two species. He's no Lydris, but he's not fully an Apuk either. Still, giving the boy time to figure out what he is had done nothing to really help their relationship as the young man started to define who he is. I can feel your torment. Care to speak? Baroness the Dreadmoss asks, and Brinchar sighs. Just wondering how best to be a father when my son is so different from myself. So many of my own trials and triumphs mean nothing to him or simply can't help. Brinchar notes standing up. A few brushes along his backside and the slight amount of debris that stuck to his pants is swept away. Do you think you could help me gather the others? I just spoke with the police chief. Is she one of those Mercy? Mercy! Everything for Mercy types? Baroness asks. Of course he would ask that. The issue that drove him to the dark forest was when a pardoned killer went right back to killing. He had no tolerance for anything less than the maximum sentence and the harshest punishments. Rumor had it, the only reason he entered the legal profession was to get other people to do the dirty work for it. And there were further rumors that most powers that be were fighting with everything they had to stop him from becoming a proper judge. No, she wants to make an example, a proper example, but she needs living victims for that, not cooling meat. Not bad. I'll do what I can. But is she really on board? Got her good and agitated, got her to admit that she would even arrest family and friends if she had to. Good, Bar-Onis says before vanishing. And after talking to the guys, I need to talk to my boy. Busy day.